Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Derby Talks. This educational podcast takes you deep into the lives of extraordinary individuals, uncovering their expertise and stories. Today's guest is a powerhouse of talent, determination, and compassion. She's a dedicated mother of three, a fighter, and an award-winning pediatric dentist. As a child health expert and ambassador, she has devoted her life to making a positive impact on children's oral health everywhere. But her accomplishments don't stop there. She recently achieved another milestone by becoming a published author. Her first children's book is a delightful adventure that teaches young minds that oral health can be fun, courageous, and joyous. Get ready to be inspired today by Dr. Rafif Tayara, otherwise known as Dr. Smile. Welcome, Dr. Rafif. It's a pleasure to have you here with our new podcast channel. We're very excited about this episode. We're going to cover very special topics. Before we start, can you just tell the audience about you? Can you just tell the audience a bit about yourself, maybe your background, just a nice introduction so that the audience would know who is our special guest today.
I'm a pediatric dentist. I'm a dentist for children. I'm Lebanese originally. I grew up in Canada, and I am a mom of three, twins, and recently a baby.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm a child health expert. And I've spent the last 14 years of my life in the GCC region between Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai. So especially Dubai is a city where it makes me feel home, for the last few years. And I just published a book called Danny and Sarah Go to Dr. Smile. So that's my first time for me becoming an author. And I'm very happy to be here with you.
Thank you very much. No, we're very excited. Where do you practice where do you work actually?
I work on Al Wasl Road in Dubai. It's a clinic called Dr. Michael's Children Dental Center. So it's a
Dr.
center that is specialized for children dentistry, and we have all the scopes of dentistry and oral health services, but we chose to have a center that is catering for children alone.
I was told that you are multilingual. You speak a number of languages.
I am.
How many languages do you speak?
I realized late in life that I have an affinity for languages and a fast way of learning them. And the fact that, because of living as an expat in a lot of countries, I felt that learning languages is helping me getting more connected to adults, parents, but also to kids, because a language to a child is a good barrier to cross. So my native languages are Arabic and French. English came, with education. I learned Spanish along the way and Italian in university.
Wow, okay.
I learned Portuguese as an adult, as a hobby. Wow. And I recently married a Dutch guy.
And that's another language.
Yes, so I'm currently studying Dutch, so I'm almost at an intermediate level.
Wow, amazing. What's your next language mission?
No, I think I'm good for now. My daughter is learning Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she's pretty good at it. So but I'm not interested. But I'm enjoying watching her.
Just for some of us who wish to learn a new language and not living in that specific country, what are the few quick tips? How do I master a new language, and maybe living from here in Dubai? If I want to learn, let's say, Dutch. Yeah.
I think, the best way to learn a language is to have a friend or a few friends that speak it natively, because I truly believe that learning a language is beyond a textbook, is really understanding the way of thinking, of that culture or their mindset. The things I learned about Netherlands and the way how Dutch people think, or how Dutch people behave, I really learned them from their language. When you study a language, you really, understand way beyond just the words. So I think the best way to learn a language is, having friends, being socially, interactive with, the people from that country.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. So, but do you
Going
feel
dancing with them, going out for a drink, those kind of things, it really helps. You can get the basics from a textbook, but when it comes to practicing and understanding also, like why they choose to, say that sentence in a certain way, it really helps.
so? Do you define yourself as completely fluent in all these languages?
No, I'm not fluent in all these languages. I'm perfectly fluent in French, Arabic, and English. All the other languages are at a lesser level.
So I would say intermediate, basic.
Yeah, intermediate.
But conversation. So if I talk to
Yeah.
you in Spanish, you quickly can respond.
Yes, I can understand. It depends on the dialect and the accent. I can understand more a Spanish from Spain and a Portuguese from Portugal rather than a Brazilian. When it comes to Brazilians, it's very hard for me to understand because they swallow a lot of words and the dialects become very challenging. But yeah, like I can read it, I can understand a text. When it comes to speaking, because it's not something that I practice fully like a native language, then it becomes a challenge.
So what does vamos? Actually, what does vamos mean?
Vamos means yalla.
Yeah, right. I had a lot of good Latin friends back in Canada, so the word vamos was always there. Vamos, vamos.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you, Dr. Rafif. This was a nice introduction. Okay, let's start with our first question. Okay. هلا هون بس بدنا نقلبها شوي. Okay.
بدك تقلبها دراما.
السؤال دراماتيك مو الضحك هون. إذا عم تضحكي بدك كنسل السؤال. هلا if you're in that mood, we can come back to these questions later.
ما عجبك المود.
لا إنه هلا بتضحكي على السؤال ما حيزبط. طيب okay. You know what? Let me jump to the another question. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about your book. Yeah, let's have this one there. بس خلي عندك. طيب. Well, as you just announced, you recently launched your first children book, Danny and Sarah Go to Dr. Smile.
Yes.
What inspired you to write this book, and what is this book really about?
Many things. Danny and Sarah are my twins. So, so this book is, a full dedication to them. I started writing this book maybe 3 years ago or 2 years and a half ago, and I always wanted to, it was always on my, when you have a dream list or to-do list, and you say, okay, this is, writing a book, check. It was always on my list, something that I wanted to do. And it meant a lot, 2 years ago to write this book to them. One of the things that is a mission, when it comes to writing this book was to really, as we talked about earlier, reducing, the phobia of kids when it goes to going to a dentist and really giving them the best condition possible for them to be able to be receptive in a positive way and have a positive attitude when they go to a dentist. So that was one of the missions of the book too.
Okay, so from your experience, if you maybe give a percentage, what percentage of kids, maybe through that age, really have phobia from going to a dentist?
A lot. And at my practice and throughout the years and where I practice in different countries and in different cities, I would say 70 or 80%,
70 or 80%
of the kids. What helped me a lot is that because I was part of a lot of raising oral health awareness initiatives in the region. This helped me starting to receive kids at a very early age. And, we really ideally, we want, children to come to us before they're born, when they are in their bellies of their moms. That's the ideal situation. That would be a dream to any pediatric dentist, that I do counseling for a pregnant woman before she delivers her baby, because oral health starts, when a woman plans for her pregnancy. You know, that's when the teeth calcify, and that's when all the issues, start, and then the window of, infectivity and everything. So that's the ideal situation. But in the last few years, I'm very happy to see more babies, starting to have, to come, in their first year of life, and this helps me so much, tackling all the issues and preventing them, because healthcare, as you know, is all about prevention rather than cure. So if we achieve a healthcare system where we only prevent, that would be the dream, right, for any doctor.
Exactly, yeah. And so your book, just for our audience, alhamdulillah,
Yes.
but
Here.
tell them more about where can they find this book, where can they buy it, and what sort of age bracket is it
Yes.
targeting?
So this book is usually for school age kids or preschool age. So usually this book would be perfect for a child between 2 and 9 or 10. And this book now is available in the English version and in the Arabic version. I wanted really to do something, in an Arabic speaking form,
Yes.
because we live in the Arab world, and while raising my twins, I realized that they were bookworms. So I realized that when it comes to children books in Arabic, a lot of the literature was not attractive to the eyes. And not as simple, when you live in an expat country, not supported by a family or support system around you that speaks Arabic. So I really wanted to do this in Arabic too. So the books are available on my website, on Amazon, in Virgin, in Kinokuniya, and in the local bookstores like Booktopia and Bookworms. And we just launched last week in Europe, in UK, Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
The other countries in Europe, are they in that local language or only in English?
No, it's in English and in Arabic.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And who is Dr. Smile?
So Dr. Smile is myself in the book.
You're Dr. Smile.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want it to call myself, Rafif in the book, because I wanted also that the name of the dentist receiving the kids in the book is something positive that kids can relate to. And then Dr. Smile came, organically, and sounded like the perfect name for a dentist for children.
Did you
Yeah.
initially did you carry that name before, or was that only introduced in the book?
No, I didn't carry it before. It was really, created a little bit before, writing the book, and while writing it, and while the whole idea took form.
Okay. And with this book, how was the ending? Did Danny and
Danny and Sarah go to Dr. Smile. The funny thing, Wasim, something super funny happened after writing this book and publishing it. I have now a lot of my patients who come back for their checkup and treatments, and now they call me Dr. Smile. Like they come, or they tell their dad or mom, mommy, are you going to take me to Dr. Smile this week? And then so it's really funny. And even patients who knew me before for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, now they want to go to Dr. Smile. Or children who are reading the book and they've never met me, in life or at the practice. And now they're actually asking their dad or their mom, can we go to the dentist? Can you go to Dr. Smile? So that actually really makes me happy that it's, I kind of made an impact.
That's good. And talking about impact, have you had the experience yet of any of these kids who read the book that they felt a bit now more comfortable?
Totally.
And wanting to meet you in person, and maybe now they're comfortable to just come and check up on their teeth?
Totally. I've been really seeing the impact, and it's super shortly because we just published in the UAE 2 months ago, or maybe a bit less. And I'm seeing a lot of patients where their parents bought the book, read them as a bedtime story at home 1 time, 2 times, even 3 times. I'm getting a lot of testimonials that is now their favorite book at bedtime. And they take an appointment after that. They come, the child is coming for his first trip to the dentist. And most of those visits are really like magic, because I almost don't need to to do a lot of effort to, psychologically for them, to be convinced of sitting on the chair, because they know when the X-ray is gonna come and take a picture. They know the menu of the flavors that I usually, tell them about to have a cleaning. So it's becoming, it's making my job very smooth and easier.
Well done. I mean, that's sort of the perfect impact we're looking at. Well,
Yes.
congratulations, and I really wish you all the best in launching maybe elsewhere as well. So fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Talking about the oral health related questions. You stated that parents should avoid giving their kids juices labeled with organic or 100% juice. Now, as a father, that came to me as a shock, because these two phrases or statements are what makes me so comfortable, and I quickly trust these type of statements that when it comes to organic 100% and 100%, you get the feeling that you are gonna drink something that is really natural. So, first question: are such labels then misleading and harmful to the children's teeth?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Wasim, you come from a marketing background, right? You wrote a book about marketing,
So we're misleading.
exactly. So you know how the industry, right, of retail and sales, and the food industry, right, is it always has this thing about using a certain titles on products or certain labels to to make you buy more, right? And they really play on the psychology of a parent, right? And as a parent, you want to give your child something organic, something 100%. The only problem is most parents who would buy something, over a shelf at a supermarket, they don't actually know how to read, right, the backside, and where those words are becoming in a super smaller size.
Yeah.
And then the equation there on the back is becoming a bit complex to a normal human brain that doesn't really know about chemistry or nutrition or the number of agents or codes on the back of a juice box. But the reality is that who cares about organic and 100% fruit juice when the juice is actually in a box, of cardboard on a shelf of a supermarket, where it has a production date and an expiry date 1 year later, right?
Okay.
And the only way to preserve, a fruit juice in a box is by putting a lot of sugar and a lot of preservatives. So what most parents don't know is that kids these days are consuming 5 times the dose of sugar that that they should have on a daily basis. And us as parents, filling their systems with so much sugar, especially juice, because those juice boxes are mostly filled with sugar. A little bit of water, a little bit of maybe of vitamins, but mostly of sugar. So that's the problem. Giving so much sugar to children is already, we're seeing the numbers are already showing. We're seeing an increased rate of childhood diabetes. We're seeing an increased rate of obesity in children. We're seeing more attention deficit. We're seeing more hyperactive kids. We're seeing a more psychological problems in children. Those are all a direct, consequence of our children of today snacking more and having more sugar.
But why are you still referring to this as misleading? Okay, what does the term organic mean?
I mean, organic is, when you have a produce, right, harvested in an organic environment in the agriculture perspective. But the problem is, even if that produce comes from an organic perspective, I mean, you're still filling the juice box with preservative and you're adding on it sugar. So that's the misleading part, is that what they add to it for it to become after it's organic.
So when I read stuff like organic, low fat, no added sugar,
Yeah.
I have to keep in mind that everything has preservatives. And no matter how much they brand it, it's still not considered as natural, and even might be considered harmful.
the rule of thumb is, if you want to really have the best diet possible for your child, the rule of thumb is stick to everything that goes in a system, or the least, the most, as much as you can. Stick to things that have a very, short expiry date. Things
Okay.
that have an expiry date of 2 or 3 days, those are perfect. Because if you squeeze a fruit juice and you put it in the fridge, try to drink it after 2 or 3 days, you cannot drink it. It gets spoiled, right? And there's a reason for that. So my advice usually to parents is that stick to animal protein, give lots of animal proteins for your child, let them chew on, look at the texture of food that they're having. Because if you get away from soft food, pasta, rice, nuggets, crackers, those are, everything processed. And if you stick to raw food, food that, the primitive food of human beings, where, we actually chew on food, this is, a great diet system for your child to develop the right size of jaws, to have less crooked teeth, and to have a very healthy gut system.
This is very insightful. Okay, I think the other point that I'd just like to raise. So, what about these almost 1 year shelf life of milk? So your advice is no, go and take the fresh milk that would last for 2-3 days,
Yes.
and always avoid
Totally.
the ones with preservatives.
Totally.
Okay, that's good.
And when it comes to like my recommendations for liquids, it would be water and fresh milk.
But that's not what the kids want, no? So
That's actually what kids would want if you give them the habit. It's I really believe that it's all about habit, and it's also all about being a role model for your child. If your child sees you drinking juice, of course you will not be able to convince him, of drinking water.
But today, today kids, the role models are no longer the parents. They're whatever they watch on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. But education at home, I mean, it's true that what they watch is a fuel for their brain. But then you also, as a parent, you need to limit what they watch. You need to restrict, what content, are they feeding?
Yeah.
And also, I think education at home is super important, because there's a limit where you're gonna be like a police, right, at home. And I do that with my kids, right? I mean, I'm not the police at home. I'm someone, as a mom, who likes to educate. So I tell them the why of everything. And even now, my twins are almost teenagers. And yes, they have, days where, they crave certain things, or but at the end of the day, they know that, I taught them that in their plate on every meal, they need to have their protein, their vegetables, and their carbs in certain proportions. So, when you transmit this knowledge to a child, it will come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I know you already answered that question, but then I'll ask it again. So in this situation, what type of drinks should children consume other than water?
So yeah, my advice always would be stick to water, and then fresh milk. Milk is an excellent drink.
Yeah, but for entertainment purposes, there's no other organic option that is maybe quite good. So okay, we talk about fresh juice that is maybe 2 to 3 days. Then you have milk, you have water. Okay,
That's
no
it.
other options.
No other options for a child. We're talking about a child.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No other options.
Okay. Ty, how much of our kids' cavities are related to genetics, and what are maybe some simple methods we as parents can maybe follow to minimize how much of our kids' cavities are we related to genetics? And as parents, maybe what sort of methods or steps we can follow to minimize their existence of cavities?
First of all, the problem in today's world, first we have a rise of cavities, in the whole planet. We also have a rise of cavities in, Western countries, where, their healthcare is actually considered to be very good.
Yeah.
Not the UAE, the GCC actually region is a red zone on the global map of cavities, where we have almost a rate of 80%. So 8 out of 10 kids that come into my practice every day has either a moderate to severe form of cavities. Now, when we look at the causes, or, what is the reason, how much of that is related to genetics, it's not a lot, by the way. Only 20 or 10% of the reason why kids have cavities is related to genetics. And genetics only comes when it comes to, when the baby is being formed in the womb of a mother. Teeth start to calcify. So, when in the second trimester of pregnancy, the teeth of a child are already formed, calcified, ready to go. During the genesis process, there's sometimes there would be a disturbance in this calcification process, and this is where what we call a genetic predisposition happen. And that's why we call sometimes you say his teeth are weak, right, or they have a small defect. And this weakness in certain teeth genetically might give you a higher predisposition to get a cavity or have a hole, because whenever you eat something, the enamel on your tooth is not resistant enough to fight the acid or the sugar on your teeth. Okay. But this whole genetic factor is a minimal risk factor compared to the environment. What is really causing the rise of cavities in the environment. And when it comes to environment, it's the diet, the habits at home that the child has, but a big part of it also is mouth breathing. So the airway is a big part of why, some kids have cavities and some kids who don't, because kids who breathe from their mouth at night and they open their lips, they have a higher tendency also of having cavities.
Yes. But then how to minimize this?
How to minimize it? By going early to the dentist. So early detection, prevention, taking your child to a dentist, in his first year of life is a major, first step to, to having a very healthy smile. Because we detect things super early as dentists, and then we know exactly how to solve them. Yeah. If there's an airway obstruction, we know how to, taking him back to sealing his lips. If we see that, I can tell by looking at a child at the exam, I can tell by the layer on his teeth, by the plaque on his teeth, the quality of it, the color of it, I can tell what he's eating. So kids can't lie to me. About what they're eating. I can tell exactly what kind of diet they're on, and I know exactly how to fix it. So, really juggling or fixing the whole environment of a child in regards to his oral health is a big part of the solution.
Okay, and then is it true that even for kids, is it the visit should be every 6 months, or
Yes.
or annual, or once a year is enough?
In general, as a rule of thumb, it's checkups are done every 6 months, whether it's a child or an adult, by the way.
Okay.
For some kids, some of my patients that are at a high risk of having cavities, sometimes 6 months is too long. So in those cases, I bring them every 3 months. And sometimes every month if it's important, but yeah, it's there's no like strict recipe, but in general it's 6 months.
And the dentist would determine eventually if that kid is at a high risk of cavity or not, right?
Of course.
So that's during the checkup where we
Yes,
actually
yeah, during the assessment, and
Okay.
and what we do as a pediatric dentist, we do like what we call a comprehensive assessment. So it's a full assessment, of his environment. Even we look at the family history. We look at even the oral health of of parents, because we also call it and their behavior towards oral health, and we call it oral health IQ.
Oh, oral health IQ.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never heard of that. So
Yeah.
okay, so that's part of the assessment.
That's part of the assessment, because if things are going wrong for him, or, he has poor oral health. There's a difference for me in treatments between a child who has poor oral health and then his parents are really ready to help and investigate, and they brush their teeth, they have a good relationship with their smile, and versus, a child with a parent who, I can tell, he's not, he doesn't have good oral hygiene routines, or he doesn't even go to the dentist, or, he skips 3-4 checkups, for example.
Okay. Can you quickly define what is good oral hygiene?
Good oral hygiene. Good oral hygiene is when you take care of your mouth and gums and tongue.
Okay.
Good oral hygiene is when you brush your teeth twice a day. It's not because we like the number 2, but it's because studies show that brushing your teeth at a 12-hour interval reduces the plaque on your teeth, and that plaque causes, oral health diseases. And so brushing twice a day, brushing your tongue is super, super important. Most people forget that. So it's always a good habit for me when I see a child very early to put him on that habit of brushing his tongue. Because once you start, you never stop doing it.
And what's the...
And flossing.
Flossing, of course. So, and the minimum time that is required for when you brush your teeth, is it minimum 1 minute or 2 minutes?
We say brush your teeth twice for 2 minutes to a child, because you know how when you have 2 kids, and when you send your child to the bathroom to brush his teeth, usually it takes him 5 seconds, because he has a game to go play, or a series to watch, or he's just excited to go continue whatever activity he's done, and then brushing his teeth is a boring task for him. So usually the term 2 minutes was kind of estimated for a child to build that, to transmit the idea that you need time to go through a certain number of teeth from all sides, and do perform a good routine.
Any kids toothpaste? Any toothpaste we should avoid for kids? Any certain?
It's not a brand or anything, but usually toothpaste that contain SLS needs to be avoided for kids. Because SLS is the sodium lauryl sulfate, which is the foaming agent that you would find in shampoos, that foams.
Okay.
And this agent is known to provoke allergies, or, lesions, or side effects in the mouth of a child, or in the mouth of a human body in general. So it's something that we need to avoid.
And
so when you look for a toothpaste for a child, just make sure it's written no SLS.
So in the market, are most of the toothpaste with SLS? Or it's going to be difficult to find a toothpaste.
No. There are many brands who have SLS-free toothpaste.
I've also read about organic toothpaste. Are these also misleading?
What do you think?
Toothpaste with preservatives. Okay, thank you. I think I had one more question, but what was it? راح من بالي كنت أسألك شغلة. طيب يلا مش مشكلة. Okay. Of course, your book spoke about phobia. Okay, but now realistically, as parents, how can we have our kids deal with this? There are cases whereby kids, it's not just a nightmare. There are cases whereby parents eventually even never take their kids to the dentist because of that phobia. So what's your message to these parents? What can we do to overcome that?
The first point that I will always repeat is really taking them as early as possible. Even if you see that they have a certain trauma, or they have a character already that is a bit reluctant to any new experiences, especially medically. Because don't forget the oral cavity of a person, invading it. It's an intimate area, and invading it for us dentists, when it's a bit of an invasion when I go into the oral cavity of a person, right? Let alone a child. It's a very invasive, action. So that's why the earlier we do it in a very positive way, and that's why pediatric dentistry is a specialty that we do after medical or dental school, where we are trained 3 to 5 years, especially psychologically, but also technically, to be able to approach a child and gain his trust. So one of the tools that you can do as a parent is look for a pediatric dentist trained and maybe known to see a lot of anxious children. That helps a lot because, you know very well how first impressions in life, they count so much, right? And when you have a bad first impression, it's very hard to erase it, right?
Yeah.
And you're not starting from zero, you're starting from -100. So choosing the right specialist, to see your child, especially if you know that, my child is very sensitive to that topic. He's not the type of child who I can just throw him in any new experience and he'll be okay with it. In that specific, condition, just look for someone super trained for anxious kids and go for him. Another thing, go super early. Don't wait until this trauma or this phobia builds up, because the more you wait, the more it's going to be hard to to let go of it, or to kind of treat it, or to overcome it. And then what else? Another thing is, you as a parent, you need to be a role model. So, for example, if your child sees you going to the dentist every 6 months, if you maybe take him with you to one of your appointments, children, they copy us and they observe us, and we are their first role models in the world. So if we show them how it's done, there's a bigger chance of them doing it. If you take him to the bathroom and he sees you brushing your teeth, the chance is he's gonna brush his teeth. If he sees you flossing, he's gonna floss.
Actually, the last point is quite important. I never thought of that. Yeah, because when we go to the dentist, we never thought of dragging our kids with us.
Yes.
To actually experience and see it for themselves.
Yeah.
So.
There's one thing, actually, it's a little bit funny, but it's so true, especially in our cultures here in the East. There's one thing that parents do, and it's like the number one mistake that a parent should never do, is threatening by a dentist. And how many times you've heard a grandparent or someone, it typically happens from, older generations, when, your child does something wrong and you tell him, don't do that, or I'll take you to the dentist.
Actually, that's quite true.
Yes.
I don't think it's even that generation. I think even still today.
Still today you see it, and this is the biggest mistake you can do, by using the dentist as a threat, because just by saying those words, you're already projecting a very negative image of the whole dental experience.
Absolutely.
And then you're ruining it for him. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So now using the dentist as a threat, I think maybe I've used it as well. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I mean, these points. So just one.
And then they say, don't do this, or stop doing this. Otherwise, I'll take you to the dentist, and he's gonna show up with his big needle.
Your husband hasn't used that, maybe by mistake, maybe?
No, never.
Are you sure?
Never. He knows what he's dealing with.
Because I think it's a bit.
There's a dentist in his face.
Yeah, because I think it's just something you're raised on. So you learn from when you're a kid
it's very cultural.
Yes,
it's very cultural, and it's one of the things where in cultures, in certain cultures, we know that we need to get rid of this. Something that we really need to erase.
Question out of the. When will we ever see maybe even we as adults, we were always going to picture these number of tools that arrive close to our face. They look like operation tools. When will these tools become just so lenient? I mean, why is it still very painful, even for us?
No, actually, this is, I said it earlier today, this morning in a talk, this is a great time to be a dentist today. Because in the last 10 years, the technology in dentistry and in oral healthcare have developed and have invaded so much that now today we have very gentle tools. We have the laughing gas. we have sedation, we have, an injection that is electrical, where you don't see the whole syringe and that doesn't, there's no sound. We are more going into the direction of a dentistry that is very gentle, no sounds, very positive. And even parents who come to my chair with their kids, they tell me this. They always tell their kids, well, you're spoiled today because in my times when I went to the dentist, it was like a horror movie. But now we are really able to offer what we call a gentle dentistry.
But the gentle dentistry, do you think it's really offered at every clinic? I think it depends on the
No,
clinic.
of
Right?
course not. But we are on the way of having it. And we're lucky here in Dubai that we're privileged enough to have a privatized system,
Yes.
where, you can afford going to, a private clinic and maybe pay a little bit more, but get a very high quality of care.
Good. Okay. Why does a child who regularly snores may be at risk of brain damage? Okay. If a child, some childs possibly have the issue of snoring, but why is that maybe at a risk of brain damage?
So, snoring again, in our cultures, snoring, sometimes I hear, well, my child is snoring, but I think it's normal. Snoring is a red flag. If you hear your child snoring at night, this is a red flag for you to go to the doctor. It's not normal. If a child is not closing his lips when he's sleeping, this is also a red flag. If a child is grinding his teeth at night and you can hear the noise from another room, like many of my, of parents who come to me, they report, this is a red flag. If your child is sleep talking, he's talking through his sleep, it's also a red flag. If your child is agitated or hyperactive at school, this is a red flag that, he's not sleeping well. So a lot of those symptoms, they go to the same story. When a child snores, he's on an oxygen starvation during his sleep. So that means that he's on a fight or flight mode to bring oxygen into his brain. And there are images of brains of children sleeping who are snoring that showed damages at the white matter area. So, because, when you snore is really the beginning of sleep apnea, when you stop, when you're gasping for air. So it's snoring is, the beginning, or the fact that, your brain is going through some sort of a damage.
Okay, so if there's that incident of regular snoring by my kid.
Yes.
So what steps do I need to take as a father?
So the steps that you need to take, first, us pediatric dentists, we are able to detect that. So
But why a pediatric dentist? I would never think that's connected.
Yeah, because when I do my exam and my assessment, I can tell if a child is snoring or having issues, at least breathing. Well, exclusively from his nose. I can tell from the development of his jaws, from the status of his mouth, from a lot of things, and also sometimes from X-rays that we take, routinely in our exam. But another thing that you can do if you missed your dental visit or you didn't go to a dentist is going directly to an ENT, to an ear, nose, throat specialist. And they are fully capable of detecting and treating. Most of the time, especially what I see, at my practice, is that children who snore, sometimes a simple removal of tonsils and adenoids fix the problem. Usually, in most cases, the cause is an upper airway obstruction. So there's an obstruction in their airway system, and sometimes resolving that and giving them a rehabilitation system to go back to breathing exclusively from their nose solves the problem.
Does the same risk apply to adults, or we're only talking about kids?
Of course, for adults, because more years have passed, into upper airway obstruction and snoring, of course, the treatment is going to take longer, and, they have a lot of relapse, right? Because if an adult snores, it means that for years, he's been kind of coping or compensating with that problem. So of course there's a solution. It's just that, the sequela or the impact is more.
Okay, so snoring, cause of snoring is not because you need to maybe, like if the cause of snoring that we understand is possibly due to the way you're sleeping. So sometimes you have to change a pillow, I heard, or so. So is this true? Is it a myth?
No, it's only a compensation. So the
Okay.
position that you take might maybe compensate, right? But you're not really treating the root cause. You're
Okay.
just, it's like putting a band-aid, on an injury that you have. But there are a lot of factors for snoring. One of them, for example, is obesity, right? If you're more overweight, if you gain weight, it increases your chance, of snoring. But it's also and for adults, it's very different than children.
Yeah.
But in children, mainly is the upper airway obstruction. Is also the tongue posture. So kids who have the habit for years to suck their thumb or to use a pacifier, their tongue becomes low positioned in their mouth, and then the actual touch of the tongue with the roof of your mouth is actually a brain stimulation for a good quality of sleep at night. So if this position doesn't happen, it's also a risk factor to snoring, to not having a proper development of your jaws, and so on and so on. It's like a puzzle.
So for adults who snore, please go and check. Please go visit a pediatric dentist or an ENT doctor.
Yeah, I mean, we detect it, but yeah, the best doctor to completely treat that is an ENT doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, oral health will impact our brain, sleep, and gut. How does that? How does oral health impact that?
So, as we mentioned earlier, that the quality of sleep is very much related to oral health, because if a child sleeps well, because of the tongue, positioned on the roof of his mouth, what happens is that the jaws and the face develop properly. So they shape to take the optimal size of their jaws. And when your jaws develop properly, your teeth fit properly. And this is why poor quality of sleep is related to crook teeth. And you know how, there's also a rise, statistically, we have today more kids that needs braces than 50 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not only because of this, because, kids these days and adults also, they have more poor quality of sleep, but also because of our diet, In today's diet, we are chewing less, we are eating more processed food, we are eating higher doses of sugar. So that's also, affecting our oral health, and our sleep and our gut.
Yes.
So that's how, it's a puzzle that is all connected.
Okay. Then you just said, okay, there are maybe, so then there's a big percentage of kids that now have crowded teeth, I read. So,
Yes.
and also biting problems. What are the causes of this?
So it's really multifactorial, but because of all the things we talked about, diet, airway, the poor development of the jaws. What we also know today is the deficiencies, especially the deficiencies in vitamin D. So kids who have a deficiency in vitamin, that's why I encourage parents to supplement in vitamin D. It's so important because vitamin D is a vitamin that helps absorb all the other vitamins. So when a child has optimal levels of vitamin D, then you have a good development of the jaw. Vitamin D is a super important vitamin for a good quality of bone, of jaws, and of teeth. So in a lot of kids, for example, that I see every day that have poor oral health or a lot of cavities, if you check their vitamin D levels, they are low.
Okay.
So that's why it's super important to supplement. Even we live in a very sunny country, and a lot of times kids, they don't go out, right? They're indoors for a long time at school. They come home, they're on a screen or gaming. And, we it's true that we live in a very sunny country, but most of the time we are not really exposed to the sun. And even when you're exposed to the sun, there's a very big difference in vitamin D, that you produce when you're exposed to the sun at 5 a.m. in the morning versus the sun at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. I really encourage to supplement and to making sure that the levels of vitamin D in your child's system are optimal.
And how do
And
we?
iron, I have to say also iron,
Yes.
because red meat is so important also for children to eat. And more I'm seeing in my practice that kids are not really, they have something against eating meat. And animal protein is something, eggs, dairy, red meat, animal protein is something essential for us as human beings to develop, proper jaws and proper face structure.
Oh. But then when you said vitamin D, what sort of supplements we're talking about? Since, okay, we're talking about the fact that kids stay at home, they're not, they don't spend time outside, so there's definitely lack of exposure to sun. What type of food, maybe items, can we suggest to kids to maximize their vitamin D level?
No, supplements are literally like tablets of vitamin D.
But in terms of natural food, where does it come from? Because these supplements, also some kids might refuse to take them, thinking that there's some sort of medicine as well.
I mean, there's always a way of taking them. There are gummies. Are a good form of taking them. There's a powder that you can take. There's a liquid that you can mix with things. But if everything fails, then it has to be a good exposure to to outdoors,
Yeah.
and a good diet based on animal protein, dairy,
Okay.
and vegetables.
Good. طيب خلصنا هذا.
Yeah.
هلا عندنا 3 questions. طيب. Okay. Dr. Rafif, if you had the chance to turn back time, okay, what are the moments you would regret, and how, if you had the power to change them, what would you do?
I usually don't like talking, or I usually don't like regretting things, because I really believe that everything that happened in my life, all the failures that happen, all the challenges, all the struggles, all the hustles, they really made of me kind of an upgraded version of myself, or the version of myself that I am today, which I'm proud of. I'm happy to be who I am today. And the person who I was 10 years ago or 12 years ago or 15 years ago is completely different than the person, today. I'm a person who is, stronger. The things that happened in my life, guided me, in a certain way where I would have never, became if I didn't go through the things that maybe I would regret today, right? So regret in general is not really something that I look at or I feel. But of course, when you look back, like any person, you look back in your life and you say, what I would have done, what would have, better. What decision back in time I made, and that, made me go through all these hardships. And if I really look back and I want to analyze, and if I want to, for example, take this as a lesson in life, maybe to tell my daughter one day what to do and what not to do, I would really advise any daughter or any girl today to maybe take her time longer before getting married or getting into a serious relationship with someone, because I truly believe that marrying someone or getting into the institution of marriage in general, before you achieve having fully absorbed your identity and knowing what you want from this life, having a bit of a clear view of, your vision and mission in this life, is a bad. I think it's a bad decision. So it's very important to build yourself, maybe start building your own wealth, build your own financial independency, knowing a little bit your direction in life, travel the world, explore a little bit, knowing really what you want and what you don't want, what are the things that you really like, what are the things that you don't like before getting married.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so there's you don't regret something in your life, but you would, if you had the chance, you would have decided to get married a bit later.
Totally.
Okay.
But again, I don't regret it because,
Yeah.
if I didn't have it, I wouldn't probably be the person who I am today.
Yeah, you just preferred the extension. You could have, you would prefer to stay a bit more single, maybe spend more time maybe on your career, then maybe decide to get married.
Yeah.
Do you
Not
think,
only your career, but I think, especially in our culture, or maybe it's a universal thing. I think, when you're young, we dread, spending time alone. You notice that, like, people sometimes they have almost a fear of spending it, by yourself. And I think time spent alone sometimes make you realize, you learn, you build a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And by having a relationship with yourself, it teaches you a lot, right?
Yes.
When you spend time in your loneliness, it teaches you a lot, who you want to be with. Do I really want to be with that person? Do I really want to go out? Do I really want to spend time with my friends? What are the things that I really like to do? Am I running every day, just doing the daily hustle, for a purpose, or, just to paying bills? Do I want to quit my job and just really focus on the things that I really want in my life? Those questions, they only come when you really spend time by yourself. And I think a lot of young adults, including me, they just didn't have the chance to do that because we are a bit pressured by our society, by our parents, to become a doctor, become an engineer, get married. We have a checklist, right? That
Yes.
is a bit given by our society, and it's very pressuring. It's a big load, and it needs to be done before a certain time. Otherwise, you feel that, I'm not fitting into that category or criteria, and okay, I have to rush it.
We never had time for self-reflection.
Totally.
Yeah. So when you talk about maybe the upbringing of our generation, which, yes, maybe included a lot of KPIs, if you go back in time, which of these KPIs would you wipe out from the list? You have to choose one.
Getting married.
Getting married.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Good. Okay. You stated the following: May we find peace in our heart despite our human loneliness and daily hustle. What are some strategies for single mothers out there that need to cope with the feelings of loneliness and maybe isolation, right maybe after a divorce? Now, I understood you experienced a divorce early in your life, and you've overcome that. You've managed to fight it. And what would be your message? What would be your recommendation for independent women out there that just maybe are entering this new phase in their life with kids, and just recently maybe had a divorce? So what would you advise them to do, and what sort of tactics and strategies are out there?
It's a big question. I think loneliness is overrated.
Is it?
I think it's okay to be lonely, especially after a divorce. You are literally, putting everything in your life, in a reality check. You need time to build new references in your life. You need time to even put new KPIs in your life, like on a total level. After a divorce, you lose friends. You lose the people who you saw all your life. Next to you. Suddenly, when you're divorced, they're not there anymore. Divorce is still in our culture a big social taboo. So people really underestimate the impact of a divorce on a single mom. But you know but it really goes back to the person, who goes through a divorce. If some people, they feel, it's a mental therapy for them to go out and have a drink with their friends or socialize or, have support from their friends just by the mere fact of, dressing up and going out and changing mood and going back home. So if that serves you, be my guest. Some people, choose Pilates or yoga or meditation, right, to deal or cope with that new transition, in their life, to find a new balance. That's okay. Personally, for me, loneliness after a divorce served me a lot because I found myself in a country alone as an expat. I was a working mom. I was a single mom of twins. I was the only parent in the country. I was the only provider. So for me, loneliness came as a point of building strength from it. It gave me a lot of strength to wake up every day and I have a purpose and, I'm not allowed to make a mistake. It was for me a bigger reason to hustle. And it was for me a much bigger reason to, be the role model for my kids, to show them, that, I can do it. It was also for me a huge motivation to hustle, day and night to build my own wealth and to be completely financially independent and comfortable on a financial level. Because I realized very early in that process that when a woman is financially free, she can achieve anything. She can say no to anything or anyone. Mm-hmm. And it gives her the freedom to take decisions for the best and in a much comfortable way. How many times you take decisions on a daily basis based, on your need or, on the fact that it pays the bill, right? So I think it taught me a lot of lessons. So I thank my loneliness, to be honest. And it also made me realize what kind of person I am, right? Because you mature, you grow, you evolve, and you really, you reach this clarity or this lucidity, where you feel that, it's like things are so clear, in my head, where, I know exactly what I need.
How did your kids feel when you decided to remarry?
I really made sure to introduce it gradually. My twins saw me a single mom for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And they really saw in front of them the image of a hustling single mom, working mom. I was doing everything. I was working. I was the provider. I was the person who does the homework. I was the person who tucks in bed. I was the therapist. I was the person who drives to extra school activities. I literally dedicated my weekend, my time off for them. So when they became a little bit older, I was hearing words from them like, "Oh, mommy, take some time off, take your me time, find some love." It was really them who kind of pushed it on me. But when I started dating my current husband, I introduced him to them as a friend. And then it went very organically. They liked, there was they really liked each other. He was a very genuine and transparent and honest and friendly person. So that helped a lot. And it went there organically. So they really welcomed the idea. Yeah. But also because it came after a long time, right? So I was their possession for a very long time.
Okay. Great. Have they felt maybe the sense of jealousy with the newborn baby?
No, at all. I think the huge gap, there's a 12 years of gap between my twins and the baby. So they now act as a kind of a second parent or
Okay.
or a parent assistant.
Okay.
They co-parent because I think jealousy happens when you have 1 year or 1 year or 2 years before kids. When you have the lesser the gap is, you feel that there's this intensity because they are competing over you.
One more question. Do you think women who stay independent, does that impact the future of their daughters wishing to get married? Do you think that impact is there if a woman decides to stay independent and refuses to get married again? Do you think her daughters, when they grow old, they might resist marriage because of seeing the mom as a role model, and maybe they just want to be like their mom? And because I've heard of stories whereby daughters would just think marriage is not for me because I've seen what my dad has done. So it's just a question: do you think does it really impact daughters to when they see the mom completely independent, that this is the right path?
I think being with a single parent who talks bad about the father doesn't, will affect negatively the child. But I think being with a single parent who, who only shows respect, to the father will not affect. If I think with kids, if you tell them, if you are honest with them and respectful, and then they don't really see conflicts or toxicity in relationships in front of their eyes, I think that goes a long way in their upbringing. But I think a child who grows in an environment where the single mom is a productive, financially independent human being, I think it's more of a motivation. It's more of a good influence, for a daughter not to be in the future with a man who fulfills basic needs, but then she will eventually choose to be with a man who is an added value to her life, who helps her grow, who is more of a, who is aligning with her vision of life, and not just, pays her credit card or, what I mean, fulfills things that, she doesn't need.
Exactly.
So I think it's a good influence to have that for a daughter, But
Great.
of course, the male figure is super important, and it shouldn't be, deleted.
Exactly. Okay, one more question. What are some of the common red signs and maybe alerts that may indicate a marriage is maybe headed for trouble? None?
There's a lot. There are many, right?
So give me the top
what
three.
is the rate of divorce today? What is it, 50?
I haven't managed to research that for this
Yeah, but I
podcast,
think
yeah.
it's 50. I think when you get married,
Globally?
it's more of a gamble, half of the time, it's really a 50-50. It's close to 50 at least. But there's so many red flags. I think it all depends on the stage, right, of the marriage, I think, after 7 years, the red flags are different than the first year. But I would say, I think the main red flag for me in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or not, is the lack of communication. I think when you stop communicating with your partner, this is where that is the beginning of the end. Because I think no matter what you're facing, no matter what problems you have, if you communicate, and if you communicate in a way where you're not blaming, it's like the whole blame situation, what, it's you who did this, it's not my fault, it's your fault. If you start blaming, that's not a communication. I'm talking about a communication that is mature, where you take responsibility of your actions, and you face them, and you apologize genuinely when you do something wrong, and you have a genuine desire of evolving yourself, correcting yourself, be the bigger person. I think communication is is like the,
That's the number one.
yeah.
Okay.
I think it breaks. And I think love, at the end of the day, what is love, right? It's, it's moments, it's happy moments. But I think what's really important is, having a best friend, having someone that you can really have a tight friendship with, that, aligns with your vision in life. You grow together. Growth I think is almost a synonym of love for me.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Afif, this was really an insightful podcast. I really enjoyed it. We could have covered more topics, but unfortunately, we don't have the time. But this was really amazing. Any last few words for the audience?
No, I really want to thank you very much for having me tonight. It was very interesting and insightful, but also a pleasure, to have met you and having this conversation with you.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. And thank you very much. And really wishing you all the best with your book and
Thank
your
you.
career as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.